So you might be wondering, what's in the boxes? Well, thanks to Kyle's sponsorship of the Matador project, we have a new set of plugs and wires, a distributor cap, and a new air filter. So we're going to throw some of that stuff on and see how she runs from there. So I'm going to go over here and pop the hood. I don't know if I ever gave you guys a decent look at what the inside of this thing looks like. Hood's pretty clapped out, but it works. So first things first, we'll start with pulling off the air cleaner, and we'll start. I think I'll start with just replacing the plugs, and then I'll go wire by wire back to the distributor cap up here, and then we'll just replace the distributor cap in itself. So it should be pretty simple. So my goals as of right now with this project is the next thing I want to buy is a carburetor. I know I should be focusing on cooling because I don't know. My temp gauge does not work very well because, like I talked about in the last video, I had the sorry, I lost my train of thought. I had that thermal, like the FLIR, and I was checking the temperature on the intake manifold when I had it running, and trying to correspond that to the temp gauge. But these are fucking so seized. But while I was, checking all that, everything seemed fine. But once I actually started running it, and I drove it around quite a few times, the one day I drove it around and the radiator was steaming because I was trying to fill it up a little bit more because I lost a lot of coolant when I had to readjust the radiator hose. But you can see this is all bulging, right? Because there's so much air in the system. I've been trying to bleed it, and I'm just kind of dumb. I haven't really done it the right way. But the one day I had it like steaming, and I didn't have the FLIR with me. Like I wanted to check the intake manifold temperature, but I didn't have that, and I don't always want to have to carry around a FLIR and scan the intake manifold. So I'm just gonna buy a set of like I think it's a three gauge cluster. It's got I believe it has a voltage reading on it for the battery. Then you get a temperature gauge and an oil pressure gauge, which I also want because I don't know what the oil pressure situation is in this thing, if it's low or I don't know. Could be any number of things. And then once I get that set, I know like I have, some oil pressure, and I can actually start testing the radiator to see how reliable that's going to be. Then I'm going to buy the carburetor, because that's the only thing that's limiting me from running this thing right. I literally have to manually adjust the choke flap the way it's set up right now. I have a very interesting method. I epoxied this. It's a really weird setup. There's supposed to be a connecting plastic piece from here to this, which is the automatic choke. And that plastic piece snapped, and I tried epoxying it together, and that didn't work either. It was just off a little bit too much, and it was making the car run like shit. So what I wound up doing was just epoxying this whole assembly here together. So basically, when I screw this bolt down, it'll push the choke flap open more, and then I'll do it less if I loosen it up, which isn't ideal. Like I can't, like if I want to drive it, that's obviously not going to be ideal, because eventually once it gets up to running temperature, it'll run fine, but when it's running like anywhere from cold to hot, it's kind of a nightmare. But right now we're just going to do some spark plugs and the plug wires and stuff, because these are, if you look at these plug wires, these have to be, some of these have to be stock. This is one that just came off this cylinder. I'll grab this for you. Like, look at this. It's all taped and kind of mangled and seems kind of old. Like some of these, there's a lot of corrosion inside of there. This one seems okay, but like some of them, like on the other side of the motor, on the driver's side, they're just a fucking mess. Not very good. So we'll start by pulling out these, place them plug by plug, and then do the wires, and then the distributor cap. already got our first hiccup. I'm just sitting here trying to change fucking spark plugs, you know? And then, come back to the last cylinder on the passenger side, and I'm tightening this plug down. I'm like, it just doesn't stop. Like, it never got tight, right? So I keep tightening it, and nothing's happening. It's kind of spinning, and then it's... Yeah, I think it's, like, actually stripped. I think we were... I don't think that I cross-threaded it at all. Like, it seemed to go in fine, but it just never tightened, right? So I got it in there as tight as I could, like where it felt the most snug, but it kind of wobbles back and forth, just like micro movement, but that's still not good. So I wondered why it came out so easy. Like, I could literally hand thread it out. So I don't know who changed plugs on this before or did what, but they're a fucking idiot. So I feel like they just tightened it too much and just spun it and killed the thread. So I guess worst case scenario, I throw some kind of like Loctite on there or something. I don't know. I'm gonna have to spitball ideas about that one. But now we're gonna move over to the driver's side. So this is gonna be even more fun because there's no room to do anything. You know, brakes and carb and power steering. And okay, this is so nice, and then this is just trash. Fuck me. Plug wires are so mixed matched and old and junk. Alright. Let's hope this works. Alright, here goes nothing. Purrs like a kitten, huh? Sounds nasty, huh? Is she idling? Idling a lot better, that's for sure. Yeah, maybe I should throw some gas in this before I keep doing dumb shit like that. Alright, so the last thing we gotta do is this distributor cap. Now, my plan is I'm just gonna go plug by plug over, line it up, make sure I have it set up right. But I'll just go plug by plug over. I don't know if I want to replace this head yet. I haven't really decided, because it's honestly fine. Doesn't seem rusty at all. Just keep it as a spare. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I know the distributor cap was pretty rusty and stuff, so this should be more than welcome. But that's if this is the right thing. Which it looks like it should be, so we'll give her a go. Alright. Don't mind the belt squeal again. Doesn't sound like there's a misfire. Seems pretty solid to me. Alright, so all we gotta do is get rid of this thing. This looks literally tabbed out. And replace it with the good new stuff. Which hopefully this is the right size. I know this is a pretty odd spec, but oh. Jill, look at that. She slides right in there, perfect. Now I need to bend this out somehow. So I'm thinking I might keep this out. Take a hammer and just kind of pound it out. See what I can do. Pound it out a little bit more. She got dented in for some reason. Overall, today I'd say it was a pretty good success. We got the plug wires, the plugs, and the distributor cap done. Everything seems fine. The air cleaner fit on perfect. I popped out the dents, got it all sealed back up. Air filter fit in there just fine. So, I should be getting into some money soon. So what I'm looking at getting is, like I said, that gauge cluster, so I can check out the temperature and oil pressure. And the voltage meter to see if my alternator is working right, but I think it's working okay, judging by the time, like I started it and turned it off like a million times by now, and we never ran out of battery, and I've driven it for a solid 5 to 10 minutes at a time. So once I get the gauge cluster, we'll move on to a carburetor. Once I get it running right, and you know, there's a lot of blow-by coming out of the oil and shit like that, and like those spark plugs had a lot of gas on them, so obviously it's dumping a good amount of fuel because it's pretty choked right now the way I have it set up by my manual choke. So once I get the carb, I can and the gauge cluster, I can get it tuned just about right to the point where I might be able to drive it for longer than 5 to 10 minutes because it won't be dumping fuel into the cylinders, it won't be running hot. Hopefully, I know the radiator, I'll have it running for just a little bit and I can hear the radiator hissing right out of the JB weld right in the filler neck. So I'm definitely going to have to get the radiator either repaired and cleaned out or just buy a new one. But first things first is the carb and the cluster set. But thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you in the next one.